doing a great thing. It's such an uncomfortable topic to talk about, especially for a guy, young guys in their early 20s. And, I'm glad that, I could tune in and, listen to you guys.
Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the broadcast. Phone number is 888-659-3727. I don't think I announced this on Instagram, but who the F cares at this point? That's how I feel about it. I'm just glad to be here with Joe Tillman on the Hair Transplant channel.
On the YouTubes.
What's happening, Joe?
Good to be here. Not a whole lot. Enjoying the beautiful weather today. It is a gorgeous 17 degrees Celsius and sunny.
Don't make me do the metric
Springtime is here,
system. I
folks.
don't understand it. When I was in the 5th grade, when they told us we were going to have to switch to the metric system, for whatever reason, I had a panic attack. And then it was like we had to start. We had to start learning, and then it was just like, you know what? We're not going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Why I panicked about centimeters versus inches? Well, that's actually kind of funny. Don't ask me.
Centimeters till the day I die.
But I did. The whole Celsius versus Fahrenheit thing still confuses me. Grams versus ounces.
I just guess. But it's 62 degrees, which is fantastic. So
that's good. I'm sure everyone is just tuning in. As you know, when it comes to social media and YouTube now, it's the first 3 seconds that counts, and you choose to talk about the effing weather.
Well, you asked.
I just asked what's up?
Hair transplant, hair transplant, hair transplant, hair transplant, hair loss, receding hairline.
Hair loss cure, hair loss cure.
Hair regrowth, hair regrowth. There we go. Now the algorithm's locked on.
Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. This is the longest running hair loss broadcast in history. The first hair loss broadcast or podcast or radio show or anything that ever resembled people having the opportunity to speak about a subject that society does not or did not allow us to talk about. This was it. Everything that came after this broadcast, I was going to say it's bullshit. After this broadcast came after this broadcast.
If you're not first, you're last.
But now a lot of people think, well, great, you're a pioneer. And in life, sometimes pioneers are the ones you get all the arrows. That's what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
I am now in contact with a relatively a new guy who's entering the space. We made him a trusted content creator for the American Hair Loss Association. I think he's doing a really good job. He impressed me the other day. And guys, you can go to the American Hair Loss Association, AmericanHairLoss.org, and check out who I'm speaking about. He's a young kid. His name is Tom. I think he's doing a very good job. But he impressed me. He asked me something very specific about, I don't want to give it away for his sake, but just about a company, whatever it is. And I laid it out, and I'm like, look, this is your future. But if you're my own son, I would tell you, you're going to have to sleep at night. You have to make that decision right now because everyone is going to be throwing money at you. That's the way it is. That's the way my career started. And I'm talking big. Back in the day, it was bigger money because I was the only guy in town and I was on the radio.
Yeah.
You have to make a choice. And it is always, at least in this industry, in the end, it's always exposed who made the bad choices. These are the guys who are, living in their shitty places and bad areas and bad cities, who are working for bad guys, who made certain choices early in their career. And that's just the way it is. I mean, there's a few really wealthy guys who ended, they were physicians. And they made a lot of bad choices. But I'm talking about the guys, the salesmen, the guys who came in later in the game as consumer advocates. And I use that term in quotes and loosely because these guys started to call themselves consumer advocates because they thought it had a good ring to it and that they too would be able to make money. Wrong about what?
This got a good ring to it. Consumer advocate. It doesn't sound cheesy.
Oh, you mean as far as them making money?
Meat behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, these fucks, man. What are you going to do? And I hate to always say, I'm the first, I'm the first, I'm the first. It's just the facts. It is what it is. It doesn't mean... All it means is that I've been around for so long that I know every player in this field. And I'm talking about every player in this field. The guys who don't think I know who they are, I know who they are.
Well, the thing is that when you are called a pioneer in this field, it means nothing. And it's been beat to death because how many pioneers do we know that are struggling, trying to hustle hair just to make ends meet because no one gives a shit. Like it doesn't matter. So in your case, it's more like you're the OG, you're the original. No one says that, and it's still true, and it has a better ring to it for what you're talking about.
I appreciate that. And I guess my point is, I can't seem to get to the show. Let me see if I can see it. Make sure it's working. And then again, the volume. I tried to fix that prior to the airing. I guess my point is, I'm seeing this kid already getting shit. And I'm also seeing certain facets of the dark side beginning to attach themselves to him. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to see the dark side starting to comment on his posts. Funny enough, recently. And I'm just like, look, this kid's going to have to make his own choices. But I explained to him there are good people in this field. Very few. And then there's all the rest. And then there's a certain level of pure evil. The likes that I never thought that I would encounter in my life. And a lot of those people who are pure evil have been bamboozled, even by friends of ours on this program, who call this program or who are associated with the show. They've been bamboozled by them. They're involved in some capacity with some of these people. Mm-hmm. It's just the way that it's just the nature of the game. People, it's difficult to know. It's kind of like marriage. You really don't know a woman until you divorce her. And that's just reality. That is a true statement. Now, again, in my particular instance, common law, I found out who she really was. I always knew who she really was, but it was something that was really solidified. Mm-hmm. Loyal, honest to a fault. Never, no matter what went down between us, never attempted to destroy my reputation or take anything that she didn't deserve.
In fact, continue to promote your reputation or grow your reputation after the fact.
In every aspect of what usually destroys a man after separation or divorce, this woman just was unbelievable. I'm very fortunate. Everyone else I know who separated from their wives or got divorced, I never forget when your buddy came over to visit me, and he came over to this place, and he thought, I was recently divorced, and he was like, what the fuck? Usually, all my friends who get divorced are living in a hovel. And I'm just like, because it was, I had a good person. I made a great choice. We just couldn't live under the same roof after a while.
Yeah.
But the same holds true for these guys who are getting involved with some of these really dark, and I'm talking about dark players in this field. So, Tom, if you're listening to this broadcast, you're doing a great job. But I'm already seeing the dark side reach out to you. So be careful. The phone number is 888-659-3727. We all have to sleep at night. Joe and I do this because we want to be able to sleep at night. You can make a lot of money sleeping well at night if you understand how to do it in this industry. It's hard. It's not easy. Most people can't. That's why they end up selling out, and that's why they end up harming people. And they rationalize it in their lives by saying, well, if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So at least I know what I'm talking about, or at least I've had a hair transplant, or at least it's all bullshit.
It doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
Oh, man. Let's take a phone call. Guys, welcome. Thank you for listening to my rant. I just see the vultures coming out already. This kid is starting to do really well. He's got like 86 or 87,000 followers now. I mean, he's really preaching a good word.
Nice.
And the vultures are coming for him.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Pat from D.C.
Pat from D.C., you got to, welcome, first of all, but you got to either get off your speaker or your AirPods or whatever.
Okay.
Roll up your window.
Yeah, roll up your window.
All right. Sorry. No, I'm the windows are closed. It's the Bluetooth in the car. I guess it's not working as well as it should.
Much better. Yeah. What's happening?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of run something by you. I've been looking at the hair transplant thing for several years, seen several doctors, and I think my comfort level is mostly with Bernstein and Hossack in New York, who I've been to in person. And I saw Dr. Bernstein a few years ago, and then I kind of changed how I kind of wanted to approach things and wanted to get back in touch. And they're like, well, he doesn't do video. You'd have to come to New York again. And but Dr. Hossack, I'm confusing her with someone else, Dr. Shaver.
Shaver, yeah.
Shaver.
Dr.
Shaver.
Shaver. She did a video, and I'm like, well, let me just meet with her, see what she's about.
So she did. You mean a video conference, a video consult?
Yeah. So I did a video consult.
Let me just say something. I mean to interrupt, but I don't think that this doctor gets her due. She's a very caring. I mean, first of all, she learned from one of the best. But besides that, on a personal note, there's something about her that, besides just having a good bedside manner, you get a sense that she really has ethics. So I don't know if you sense that, but I mean I have known a lot of doctors in this field, and I think she's one of the good ones.
Yeah, no, I mean she had a bit of a better bedside manner, than he did. He was a decent guy, but I also just felt like I think seems like he's only working kind of part-time, and I'm, probably going to need at least one or two more over the next 20 years, and, it might be better to get with someone who's not going to be retiring shortly.
Or dead.
Yeah, I know. That could happen to any of us at any point, I guess. But yeah, no, I just like their conservative work, and, I've hunted around the D.C. area a little bit. I saw Dr. Lindsay, who just wasn't a match for me, and, who took over Dr. Vogel's practice near Baltimore. That's who Hossack, who I was thinking of. And I had somewhat of a comfort level with her, but, it's something she just kind of does in between all the other plastic surgery she does. And so
yeah,
I'm thinking...
what's her name?
Pat?
No, not your name. What's the other doctor's name that you saw? Not Shaver, not Bernstein?
She took over Dr. Vogel in Baltimore's practice, and I think it's Hossack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
Because I had seen him years ago.
Yeah. So, okay, I don't mean to keep interrupting you. So finish your story. You feel comfortable with potentially going to New York. How old are you, and how long have you been dealing with hair loss?
I am 55. Hair loss started to show like in my mid-30s, and now it's, I've got kind of a bald spot on the back of my head and receding in the front. And medication has, slowed it some, but it's certainly not halted it by any means. That's why, I'm definitely going to need at least another one, maybe a third at some point between, now and 70 or something.
Yeah, possibly. Or we're going to have possibly better treatments, and, and you're going to be good. I mean, now being your age and being able to hold off this long puts you in a much better position than most people, especially younger people. So you have more choices, meaning if you do well on medication. Did you say that you're on medication?
Yeah, I've done propecia or dutasteride for almost 20 years now.
Okay. Now, did you?
Okay,
What? How did you do over the last 20 years?
It's definitely, progressed significantly. I think the medication has slowed it some, but there's definitely been significant progression over the last 20 years.
Okay. Now, were you always using generic? Were you using brand name? Did you switch? When did you switch from finasteride to dutasteride? Give me a little history.
I was about, 12-ish years on finasteride or, cutting up the ProScar. And then I was on dutasteride about the last 4 years. And then Dr. Schaefer actually recommended that I just go back to the ProScar. And I didn't realize how much the dutasteride was affecting libido, et cetera, until I got back to the ProScar, and that's all much better.
Yeah.
And, because I was limiting the dutasteride to every other day, and she was like, that's sort of underdosing. Why don't you just go back to the ProScar, take that every day? The results are fairly comparable. So I switched back to ProScar a few weeks ago, and
now,
it's definitely...
are you using brand name ProScar or are you using a generic finasteride?
Just generics.
Okay. Now, have you been on the same generic all these years, or are the generics being switched on you?
I mean, it's the same pharmacy, but I don't know if it's the same,
So this is the problem, and I think it's important that people understand that. And I'm not just doing this for your benefit, but for everyone who's listening. Your story, not saying that everyone who uses brand name or the same generic will have long-lasting results, but generally, the guys who have been on finasteride long-term, who seem to have always been on generic or most of their time on generic, seem to progress more. Again, this is a generality than those who've stuck to either the same generic or brand name for all those years. So it's because you started so early in the process. Now, when you started taking the drug, did you still have most of your hair?
Yeah, it was just thinning in the back a little bit then, yeah.
Okay. So what a lot of guys don't understand is when you get a generic, even if it's from your pharmacy, there's a good chance that throughout the years, that same pharmacy is going to be sourcing their generic from different sources, or whatever's cheapest for the company. Mm-hmm. And it can go from India to China to Ireland. Usually Irish products are pretty good. They're pretty close to the molecular structure of the brand name. But so most people have no idea. And it can even look like the same pill. Usually it's slightly different, but could even look like the same pill. So it's possible that you progress to this point because of the generics that you're using. I just want you to know that. It's also possible that you're back on ProScar. If you're on a better generic, it's possible if you wait long enough, like another 6 months or something, you might start to see some regrowth again.
And I think the ProScar, the brand name, is more feasible. And at some point, because I was doing the Avodart brand name, and then for some reason it got insanely expensive. And with the ProScar, if I get a month supply that I'm breaking up into 4 tablets, it should be reasonably affordable in brand name anyway. So I'm going to look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, consider that, especially if you're ready for surgery now and you've lost so much ground. This is something to think about. Because a lot of guys, you're only 55, you've been on these drugs for 20 years. Yes, some people don't respond as well as others. But normally if you respond pretty early in the game, it's going to keep those anagen phases longer, and you probably wouldn't have progressed as much. I'm thinking, again, this is just based on 30 years experience speaking to a lot of patients over the years. There's no scientific data showing this. Like no one's doing a paper on this. So I can't point. All these young kids want me to point to the fucking papers all the time. But sometimes you just have to talk about it as if they're going to read or understand them and know how they were found. So, Joe, I'm just curious. What's your thoughts on this? And then we'll answer his transplant questions.
Well, no, everything you said is spot on. I mean, I was doing an interview with someone else recently talking about this exact same thing, and it's basically rehashing everything that you and I have been saying for since the beginning of time, that the the consistency with generics, we just don't know, because we've talked to so many people that would be on name brand for however long, no problems whatsoever, and decide to save a buck, switch to a generic at a fraction of the cost, and then 6 months later they're like, I'm losing my hair, my
It's
ProScar's
like,
not
I'm
working.
bald. And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, that's what happened.
Yeah, and no one looks at the source medication as being the culprit. They think that it just stopped working, and technically it did, but it's not the same medication. If it comes to that, I mean, sometimes it is. Like you're talking about the Irish, the brands that are based out of Ireland. We know that Teva out of Israel is supposed to be pretty good. Nothing we've heard negative about that. But there are so many companies out there that make this now. Like in the States, I think there's 12 just in the U.S. that make generic drugs in general. I don't know if they make generic finasteride, but it's a big business, and even bigger business outside the States, where India and China, all kinds of other places where costs are a lot less to deal with, a lot less overhead, and they can crank it out, and they got their standards, whatever they may or may not be, and it's if you look online, if you look up FDA and generic pharmacy or a pharmaceutical company, you'll see stories where the FDA is fining companies for not complying with standards. And these companies, if they're not in the United States, the FDA still has jurisdiction on them, because these companies are sending their medication into the U.S., so they actually have jurisdiction. So if a company in India is making this, the FDA can do inspections on site to make sure that they're complying with the regulations and standards that they require for medication to be sold in the U.S. But there's a lot of challenges, we'll say, with those companies keeping their product consistent, and they get busted on it.
Anyway,
you just don't hear about it.
To make a long story short, there's a book that you guys can pick up. I have no promo codes or any bullshit like that. It's called Bottle of Lies. The author, it was published in 2019. Let me see if I can find the author. Catherine Eban, E-B-A-N. And it really gives people a better understanding of what these generic drugs do. And what's scary about it all is when you're hospitalized, this is all you're given are these generic drugs. And we're talking about for some serious conditions. So anyway, that was a long-winded way of expressing. I didn't think Joe's answer was going to be quite that long. Mine was pretty long too. But
they always are.
Yeah. But of expressing that it's possible that if you get back or if you get on a different generic, that you could need less grafts when you decide to have a hair transplant, and that your long-term success is going to be better. And you may not have to worry about, Bob Bernstein retiring or passing away.
Mm-hmm.
You may only need 1 or 2 surgeries, and that will help you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, and I know from what I remember, the ProScar brand name was much more affordable than the Avodart, so I can definitely look into that. Yeah.
So, but as far as you getting surgery, this is surgery, man. What did Dr. Shaver express to you would be your best option surgically?
It's starting with, she gave me the option of the FUE or the FUT, but, she recommended the FUT first, or, because it gives me, more hair in the future, more options. And I got the paperwork at home, but it was a little over 2,000 grafts for this procedure. And I've seen a few doctors, definitely the most expensive, in addition to the travel costs. But, of everyone I've been to, I just like their work the most. And I did ask for, samples of her work in particular, because I couldn't tell from the website whose was whose. But.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. They're not cheap. There's a reason for that. And, Bob Bernstein really, when I wrote the original The Bald Truth, that was my go-to guy. I was going to write a derogatory chapter about hair transplant surgery until I walked into Bob's office in New Jersey at the time. You can understand, this was so long ago. He was living on top of his office. Now, it was a nice apartment building he was living in, but it was in Fort Lee, New Jersey. So, Dr. Shaver learned how to do it correctly. And they're very honest about surgery, and that, strip is still, and, I got shit for saying this, it is still the gold standard no matter what anybody says. So if you want the most bang for your buck, if you want your grafts to be dissected under 3D magnification using stereomicroscopic dissection, if you want to work with the best teams in the business, usually those clinics will continue to incorporate FUT surgery into their practices and have really good teams and a good standard of care. Being that you're in your 50s, go ahead.
I was going to say, I had asked her about, traveling same day back to D.C. via train. And, but I think she said you kind of would be bandaged with a black bandana or something. And I'm just, I'm just thinking, what are the options for coming back and not being a spectacle on the train? I mean, it is
Zero.
what it is. It's a few hours, but
Zero options. And no. Zero with FUE or FUT.
Yeah.
Your best bet, if I was going to have such a significant, life-altering cosmetic surgery, and if I was going to spend the money that you plan on spending to have the surgery, I'd spend a couple of days in a decent hotel. Let's see, where are they? Where is she located? I forget. They moved on.
I went there shortly after the pandemic. I can't remember. It was not far from the train station. I remember it didn't take me long to get there from the train station.
I mean, there's some good hotels in the area that aren't that expensive. There's a place called the Lowe's Regency, which is actually on Park Avenue. And believe it or not, they have pretty cheap rates for a really nice hotel. So, and there's other hotels, but that just happens to be a nice hotel that seems to be more reasonable. My advice to anybody is not to travel right away. What happens if you have a complication? You have to get back on the train and deal with that.
Yeah.
You want to be able to go into the office the next day. You want to have your scalp washed. You want to have it checked out. I would even take 2 days. That's what I would do. Now, you're not getting on a plane, so that's good. You got these idiots who are flying all over the world 2 days after, or a day after in some cases, but 2 days after having surgery. And doctors would be like, that's not a big deal. There's tremendous cabin pressure. Some of their grafts could be popping. There's all kinds of issues. You don't believe that, Joe?
Well, no, I don't. It's only because I've dealt with so many patients that have left the day after, and I know that the cabin pressure is equivalent to like 8,000 feet or something like that. So it's like driving up on top of a mountain when you fly.
Yeah, I mean, I know you worked for a clinic that did that a lot. I always disagree with it. I always think in the end, you are potentially sacrificing results that you don't even realize.
Well,
that's all I'm saying.
The real challenge or the real danger, though, is actually bumping your head on the overhead compartment. That's definitely a challenge, and with the grafts being so fresh, they're not anchored. There is a good chance that you could knock something loose. So that would be a very valid concern if you're flying out the day after or even 2 days after. So,
and you were also feeding these people Subway sandwiches during their procedure.
No, there's no Subway near, and there was a very good deli down the street if they wanted a sandwich. Yeah. But
Joe's never wrong, by the way, caller.
That sounds like good advice to stay up there a few days. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I used to tell patients. It's if you're going to leave, that's fine, but it's best to stay. And if you're going to stay, and you got to fly out, then stay a week, because a lot of times, if you're going to swell, like if you have facial swelling, it's going to start on day 3 and end by roughly day 6. And most people don't want to travel with that issue. But if you're driving, then that's a different situation altogether. It's not, or taking the train. It's not a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
So
one other thing I was just going to ask you about is the Stimson thing. Does that all go bust? I thought I saw something where they lost their funding and kind of.
It did. It's an interesting. I call it the Adirond's phenomenon, and It's a very interesting phenomenon. Any company that gets involved or signs with Adirond's all of a sudden disappears. Now,
Signs with who?
Adirond's is the parent company of Bosley, and they're also big it's a Japanese company, huge in the wig making business, and they had their own. Let's just call it hair multiplication process, for lack of a better term, for years that they were working on, in quotes. I'm sure they were. And then, I remember when during the pandemic we had Stemson Therapeutics, for the Global Hair Loss Summit. And everyone was super excited. They got a really big round of funding, which no one had ever gotten before. I mean, they were doing great. They were really pushing towards possibly getting something done. Then all of a sudden, there's this big announcement that they're going to be working exclusively with Adirond's. And Adirond's essentially bought the exclusive rights to their technology. And then all of a sudden, they're out of business.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating? Now, I'm not making any claims. I don't know what happened, but it's just, I call it the Adirond's phenomenon, and it just seems to be something that's happened, in the past, and it's currently happened. I guess it was about 6 months ago to a year ago, something like that.
I mean, speaking of Bosley, don't have a comfort level with them, but I did have an acquaintance that went to Bosley here in Bethesda, Maryland, and he had actually very good results. But
yeah, it happens. Bosley's come a long way, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends on the doctor and the staff. I mean,
yeah.
If you happen to go to a place that, like I know that there's a guy in Virginia Beach who is a great hair transplant surgeon. As he got older, he decided he wanted to relax and not deal with the business aspects of things, so he signed up with Bosley. They used the same team and the same doctor, and out of his office, you get good results. It's the way it works.
I'm kind of want to. If I'm going to do it now or recent, I'm looking at maybe doing it in June, because I don't want to do it July and August when people are on vacation. Otherwise, I'll just wait till the fall. But,
well, here's the thing: surgery is always going to be there. See how you do on medication. There's no rush. I mean, are you married?
No, I don't see that in my future.
Okay, but I mean, so
essentially single.
Okay, so you've always been single, but I mean, how's your life dealing with hair loss at this point? I mean, obviously you'd be a little happier and feel more comfortable with a little more hair in your head. It sounds like, but
yeah,
have you been
the
able
hair
to?
Thing is that the caps are getting old, and then I pretty much will wear caps anywhere that I other than like a nice restaurant or someone's home where you feel like you can't wear a cap, and then it's like, sort of a comb over thing, and that's getting more ridiculous all the time. So
have you considered? And again, you're not saying 55 is old. I mean, I'm older than you, but have you considered trying a hair system?
I could be interested in just a hair system on the crown, and the front kind of receding and thinning, and just covering the bald spot. I'm not sure what the options are for that.
If you can do that, if that's actually a consideration for you, then that's the way to go, brother. This is what you do. You go online. There's a couple of great resources. There's one resource called coolpiece.com. They have not a great website. It's a little confusing, but they provide a really good product for like 20-some-odd years. I don't think they have to update their website because they have such loyal customers. But there's a lot of different companies where you can buy these pieces online. You could buy a stock unit. You could have a template made at a hairdresser, so you don't have to spend more than like maybe $300 for a stock unit, and then have it cut up, the piece, have it cut in, and see if you like it. Get some tape, see if you like it. If it looks good and you can deal with it, then that solved your problem. You don't have to go through surgery, see how the drugs work for you, and then surgery is always going to be there.
Yeah, well, maybe I can look. And there is somewhere in D.C. I was reading an article about, that kind of specialized hairpiece place. They were profiled in the Washington Post a few years ago.
Any company that's profiled in the Washington Post is a company you need to look at with a jaundiced eye. All I can tell you is I had a front cover of the entertainment section of the Washington Post in 2006. the writing in that article, I mean, you talk about not getting something right. Now, it was exciting to have your picture taken and have the Monday edition of this stuff, but the out and out lies that they told about the industry, forget about me. But it was, I actually called the writer up and I said, I didn't even know how you call yourself a journalist, brother. He was basically called out for something recently. He was pretty young then. But yeah, if it's written about in the Washington Post in general, it's something you want to avoid. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of places.
Appreciate the advice.
Just go online. You can buy something. I'm telling you, get a stock unit. Get like a, what are they called, Joe? They change their names all the time, but it's like a 0.3 millimeter like skin unit, V-loop. They're basically disposable. So you're going to get this thing, you're going to look at it and be like, what the F is this? But when you learn how to finesse it, have it cut it to the size of your, with a razor blade, cut it to the size of your bald spot, or find someone locally who does hair pieces and just bring it to them, they'll know what to do. They'll charge you, but they'll know what to do. The whole experience may cost you $500 or $600 for the experiment. And
it's worth it.
You don't have to travel anywhere. It's worth a try. You're in your 50s, and if all you're concerned about is a bald spot, then this may be your ticket until you see how well you do on medication again.
Yeah.
Once you're cut, brother, once you're cut, you're cut. And I'll tell you, if Dr. Shaver heard me tell you this, she would agree.
Yeah.
That's how ethical she is.
Cool.
All right?
All right. Well, thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it.
The rest of the weekend.
Good luck.
Right on.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
He's calling to make that appointment for surgery right now.
Of course. Yeah, that's the way it works. Okay, well, now I know. Anyway.
Everyone's like, why don't you get surgery, Kobren, to fix that hairline? Anyway, go ahead.
We like that hairline.
Dude, I'm almost 60.
I'm almost 60. There it is. There it is, Rob. Rob Hellner.
In real life, I get, that sounds obnoxious. But in real life,
I know what you're gonna say.
But in real life, no one's looking at my hair. They're trying to figure out
your lazy eye.
They're looking at my other lazy thing. Anyway,
no one's looking at my hairline. I don't understand why.
Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. We do have lines. Actually, all lines are lit. So you want to take a call?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right. Joe says okay, so we're going to do it. Hold on. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Adrian from Melbourne. Spence, Joe.
Hey, Adrian. What's happening? Happy Passover, brother. Oh, happy Easter.
Happy Easter. I've been well, guys. I have tried a couple of times to call in, but the demand has been that such that, I couldn't. But that's a good thing.
We get that.
Yeah, I get it a lot, I'd imagine. Look, I'm actually on topical dutasteride, and I've had no side effects, which is great considering I trialed finasteride, either 1 milligram microdosing topical over a period of probably 3 years. And I don't know, is it a placebo thing or not when I look in the mirror? But I feel like it is. My hair is a little denser, a little healthier.
The stuff, if it's a good quality product, it works.
Yeah, well, I'm sourcing it through Sinclair Dermatology. I see Dr. Bevan Borrell, and he's prescribed it, and I bought it through there. So
he's a nice guy too.
In China he's a lovely guy. He's a great guy. A lot of respect for you too. Not as much as I have, but still, it's up there.
No, it's I mean, you're a little over the top, my man, but whatever.
For sure, man. Yeah. Plus 145% tariff for you guys. Nothing homo. You know what I'm saying.
Dude, but, I mean, thank God you're not wearing a hairpiece anymore. Do you know how much that would cost you?
Whew.
With those Chinese tariffs, forget about it.
Yeah, well, I wore it for a while. I wore it for nearly 24 years.
Yeah, now it'd be up 145%.
That's it. The previous caller you had, and he was talking about the possibility of maybe a hairpiece. It's a really good move. It is because it's not permanent. I mean, you can throw the thing away, like I did. You're not committed. You're not cut. You're not inked up. It's a really good move.
Dude, I talked about it on the air. People, they forget all the time. Joe never forgets. But I did, I basically cut it in, gave it a shot. Yep. Look, I don't mind painting my head, okay? But I also don't mind if I have to glue something on. It wouldn't be the end of the world because it's good to have that option.
Absolutely. It saved my ass. It really did. Like, by 24, 5, you had these horrible scars left from those horrible plugs. So for me, it saved my butt. And if you don't, I think on one of Y's live streams, Women's Hair Loss Project, we're chatting, and basically we were just talking about the fact that if you don't give a fuck, if you don't care about something about yourself, no one else gives a fuck, because that's your reality. And it's the same with hair pieces. It was for me. I didn't care. I only got to a point after God knows how many years, I was just sick to death I wasn't worried about wearing it. I was sick to death of wearing it, because by then it looked like a tiny small animal had crawled up on my head and died. I was just I didn't give a fuck anymore.
You got to keep up with that, though, brother. That's the thing.
Yeah, I know someone else in that position.
It wasn't the same hair.
He finally got rid of his.
After a while, I think what happens after a while is guys become kind of lazy with it, and they're like, I think this could last another week or another month or another.
Yeah.
And then
I can squeeze out another few days.
Yeah.
No, you got to maintain it. It's like you got to take it to the gym in terms of you've got to work it, you've got to look after it, and it's got a shelf life and have a backup. I was lucky because I had curly hair, so I would get my hairdresser to perm it. I'd buy it at the same colour because back then I didn't have grey hair, and honestly, people didn't pick it up. And I worked with people who would be the first to pull me down over having a hairpiece, and when I told them, they didn't believe it. So it is an option. Young guys right now in the chat room are probably thinking, "You got to be kidding!" But seriously, it can work. It does work.
Well, what's interesting, Adrian. Now today, it seems to be more of an option than it ever has been, based on everything that you're seeing online and social media.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot more acceptable today than it was back in my old day. And I'm on your heels there, Spencer.
Well,
I'm 60 at the end of next year.
Jesus Christ,
so
man.
Yeah.
That sounds so old to me.
Yeah, well, it won't when you get there, I think.
Well, someone else says
I'll be there.
Think about it.
I'll be there in a month. What am I going to do?
Yeah, well, I went to Thailand last month, and I felt like I was 16. But still,
that's right. That's how it works.
There is no age there. Trust me,
dude. At our point in life, it's either Costa Rica or Thailand. That's it, and it's fine. That's where all the sexual refugees end up.
Yeah. Well, I certainly knew the dutasteride. I knew that testosterone didn't have side effects then, I can tell you. But anyway, that's another story. But
hello.
I'm at work. I'm going to keep it sweet, guys. I've been ring, but it's good to hear voices. Thanks for all you do. Firstly, a big shout out to Y. I wish more people would watch her podcasts and her videos, etc.
Well,
she's got so much information that guys.
Anyone who wants to watch her, if you have someone who's dealing with hair loss, who's a woman, or if you're a guy, you want to know what it's like for women dealing with hair loss, check out Women's Hair Loss Project. You can find it at her website. I guess, what is it? womenshairlossproject.com, and also Women's Hair Loss Project on Facebook and WHLP Network. And you just look up Women's Hair Loss Project and you'll find her.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just a lot of sage advice. A lot of notes that we can take out of it and benefit from. But yeah, again, Joe, thank you, man. There's a debt I still have. I can't pay you back for. Feeling good with life. You guys.
I keep sending my PayPal, man. You keep saying that, but I've sent you my PayPal like 5 times. Just kidding.
Yeah, well, I thought it was Bitcoin. I'm sorry, man. There's a tariff too on that one. But anyway. Well, yeah.
Well, Adrian, it's always great hearing from you, and we appreciate you being a friend and a fan of the show.
Yeah.
Thank you, man, for putting the show up. And, always watch it. And thanks for the time you do.
You got it, man. All right, you
Take
take
care,
care.
Adrian.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All the best, guys. Bye.
Bye.
He once called me on a show. I don't think you were doing this show. It was like an IG, and he was working. He works with, I think, autistic or severely autistic people, and there was some kid, some guy banging him hitting him in the head while he's driving. This guy's dedicated.
That's dedication for sure.
Phone number 888-659-3727. I'm just joking about the sexual refugee thing, Adrian. Not really, because I'm, at this stage in life, like, why not?
He's almost 60.
Do you know what a pain in the ass it is to try to deal with a human being here in Los Angeles? Just doesn't make sense.
The first mistake is believing that they're human beings.
That's
That changed a long time ago. There was a theme behind today's show. I created that when I made the thumbnail.
Guys, hold on. Joe's got to get this out, so hold on. We'll take a call.
And I wanted to get the conversation started if you wanted to take this on. But I saw a post. I'm going to go ahead and name a name. Dr. Sam Lamb, the guy that wears glasses that look like they're made for a 5-year-old. He posted on Instagram. I thought this was funny. He posted on Instagram that he's been featured in the New York Post. And it's interesting because what he did, he had a screenshot of the story, and the story has nothing to do with him. It's actually about Perez Hilton, the gossip columnist, is in the New York Post, and he's talking about exposing secrets of the hair transplant industry because he's had 3 hair transplants himself. And it goes on to talk about what he's been through. It doesn't name the clinic, but I can say it was Alvy Armani because it's already public and out there. I was supposed to do an interview with him, actually. But the article goes on and starts talking about, bringing in some other experts to talk about the industry at large. And Sam Lamb's role in this is he's quoted from a previous interview, apparently. And he goes on to talk about the dangers of the black market and going to Turkey, and saying that the problem also exists in North America quite a bit, and to be on the lookout because according to the ISHRS, one of their most recent surveys or polls, the increase of repair jobs fixing bad hair transplants where a technician or a unlicensed professional did the hair transplant was up 5% for last year. I might be getting that slightly wrong, but paraphrasing as well. And I thought to myself,
you mean the black market is repairing the black market?
Well, I basically, but I thought to myself, well, what's the repair rate for bad work performed by your colleagues that are doctors, that are screwing people up every day?
Absolutely.
And we've talked about this, offline for years, about some of the upper echelon members of the ISHRS.
Some of the worst physicians in this field.
Are some of the worst physicians have caused more absolute terror, suffering
yeah,
in people's lives than any technician has ever created.
Correct.
By far.
And they also created the technician model. It was a member of the ISHRS who handed the first punch to their technician and said, let's see if you can make this work.
And he's a pioneer.
Yeah.
And if you're watching early, you know how I feel about pioneers. So that's why I came up with the thumbnail, and that's why I came up with the title of Trust Me, I'm a Doctor.
Yeah.
Because those could be some of the worst words for you to hear when you're on the table having your surgery.
Look,
I'm asking questions.
I'm going to tell one. Listen, Sam's an interesting guy, and him and we've always gotten along. But you know, in my view, he knows how I feel about this. He's always kind of kowtowed to the politics. He's been somewhat of a coward, I believe, and this is a terrible thing to say, I guess, to most people. But as far as like standing up for himself and standing up for what's right when it came to doing what we do. You know, he was invited to be on the faculty of the first Global Hair Loss Summit. He was psyched. He sent in his talk. He was one of the first guys to send in his talk. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember this, Joe. And then he got Then he got pressured by his colleagues from the American Board of Hair Restoration Surgery and possibly the ISHRS. I know one person who's a director who threw out a lot of nonsense. And he said, you know, I really can't do it. I'd be going against what my friends are asking me to do, and they're very uncomfortable. But, you know, I know you're doing great work, Spencer, and I really apologize for doing this. And, you know, I'm not saying he's not a nice guy. Maybe he's too nice. But that was, listen, Sam, I'm sorry to say, but that was a real bitch move. You know?
I'm not going to disagree with that.
No, I'm just saying that was a real bitch move. And really, to me, that shows there's one thing about being loyal, but to me, it shows a tremendous lack of character when you know how bad this industry is. You know what your colleagues are doing. You know the truth. When you're being interviewed by the New York Post, you know the truth. You could actually help people when you have these opportunities to be in the media. So I believe all these guys are complicit. Now, that's not to say I wouldn't have dinner with the guy or have a drink with the guy or think that he's incredibly articulate and he lives an interesting life. He speaks several languages. You know, he married a woman a lot younger than him, which, you know, he knows that I approve of. But you can't trust, I'm telling you can't trust, and again, this is general, it's not just him. The vast majority of these guys that become go-to guys in the media, you can't trust. They are spewing the biggest bunch of nonsense. And if they're claiming the black market is fixing the black market, the ISHRS, in my view, not only were complicit, but they created. They helped to create the black market. Mm-hmm. The black market, these guys overseas just scaled what these people created and that we were trying to fight for years. Why do you think back in 1998 there were only 11 doctors who I was able to mention in the original The Bald Truth? 11. That everyone was up in arms because all the rest sucked at what they did, in my opinion, and people's lives were being destroyed. I'm not saying Sam's destroying anybody's life, but all these guys are cowards, in my view, and complicit. Sam, feel free to call me if you heard this, by the way, because I'm sure it's going to be sent to you. We could talk it out. But, you know, I call it like it is, brother. Whew. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Yeah, this is Broderick from the UK.
Hey, brother. How are you?
What's up, man?
I'm okay. I'm interested in the discussion you've been having because Sam Lamb, funny that you should say it, he's got a bunch of really decent lectures on the YouTube.
He is one of the he was one of the OG guys on YouTube. This guy is incredibly articulate. He comes across like anything he touches will turn to gold. He has a very comforting, trustworthy bedside manner online. And I understand why people are attracted to him. I mean, it doesn't mean, I never said that he's bad at what he does or whatever, but all I'm saying is, you know, he knows the reality of what's happening with his colleagues. That's it.
I can't speak to his skills as a surgeon. I just know that his lectures were quite, they have lots of information. It's fairly dense. A lot of surgeons seem to have different theories, though, about how hair should be angled or how low you could go with the hairline or when you could prioritize the crown and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they can't all seem to agree on all that much.
Well, that's why it's called the practice of medicine, brother. And none of it's really standardized, and especially in a situation like this, because so much is not really shared, and everyone wants to be the author of the, of the textbook, and everyone wants to have their name attached to something, and everyone wants to show that they're doing something in a specific way that other physicians aren't doing it, and that they're the leaders and the teachers and all that happy horse shit. And in the end, no one can agree on anything except, some hair transplants look better than others. There's some basic information that everyone knows, but people don't necessarily adhere to, like the theory of donor dominance is not a theory, it's a reality. The fact that there's now something that's becoming more prevalent, which is recipient dominance, because these grafts are becoming a lot more denuded and taking on some of the characteristics of hair that was originally miniaturizing in the recipient area. That's something that no one's writing about, but they're talking about it. So, yeah, you're going to hear a lot of interesting things online. Sam's a great speaker, man. I hand it to him. He presents himself incredibly well.
They speak about recipient dominance sometimes when they talk about transplanting beard and body hair into the scalp.
Yeah.
And some of the doctors will say, we took this guy's beard hair and it was coarse and kinky, and then we put it in the scalp, and now it's a little bit more like scalp hair. And I have no idea if that's true or not.
There's anecdotal evidence for that.
Yeah, it's all anecdotal. And I don't even know why they say anecdotal evidence, because sometimes anecdotal is not evidence-based, but I say the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, though. But there's anecdotal reports. We see this happening, and Ray Woods was actually the first guy to document it and to show it to the world.
He showed a picture of a patient who was a repair patient, as most of his patients were back in the day, and he demonstrated that chest hair, at least in this patient, when transplanted to the scalp, would grow much longer than it would when it was originally on the patient's chest, and the picture was of the guy's hair pulled vertically next to a ruler, and it was like, I don't know, 10 inches long. Like the guy had long hair, and supposedly everything on top of his scalp was chest hair, and maybe some back hair as well, and it had all grown significantly longer than it would have in its native location. And that was in 2002 or 3, I think. Yeah, a long time ago.
And they still don't have concrete proof for this, or what happens in a minority of cases, or what?
The people that take the time to write papers, based on specific things that are going to get published. So if it's something that is not of great interest to the advancement of the field necessarily, but more of the true advancement of the field, but more that's something that could be, how can I put this without sounding like a complete asshole? These guys don't always put the information out there that we would want to see out there. They want to advance the field or advance their positions in the field, so they will publish things that they know will get published and get eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not necessarily conducting the studies that say we as consumers and as you as a hair transplant consumer would really want to see done.
All right. There was, speaking of something that you and the previous caller...
God, these doctors must think I'm such an asshole.
They do.
Yeah.
The previous caller and the one before, I think Adrian and the other guy, were talking about hair pieces and the 0.03 millimeter thin skin units. And I've actually tried those before. And the problem with them, one of the problems, is The hair is injected or attached to the piece in such a way that it basically grows, if you want to take the term grow, straight forward. It doesn't quite exit the scalp in the appearance in a natural fashion when it's on at the hairline. And so if you look closely, it doesn't quite look realistic.
Yeah, you have to, here's the thing, you can get these stock units and that's the case, but they really have to be finessed. And the thing about V-loops is that you can actually pull hair out and finesse it. Now, I would say that you're probably right. I've seen some that are ventilated horizontally, meaning that the loop, it doesn't go straight vertically up and down. It has a horizontal look to it. If you look at the back of the skin, so the hairs are coming out, straight up or back, but it doesn't catch the eye as if it's coming out like a noticeable hair transplant, so to speak. So it really depends on where you get it from. So some places will V-loop the front and it'll be more of a horizontal way going in one direction, and some will do it kind of straight back and forth. So you're right about
that.
The
V-loops in particular, they tend to come out parallel to the skin, which doesn't quite look right. The corollary of that, of course, is most people are not paying that close attention to your hairline. But on the other hand, if something is not quite natural, it tends to draw the eye.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. But this guy doesn't even plan on using it in his hairline. This guy plans to use it in the back of his head. So
yeah, kind of like a kippah almost.
Yes.
Like the sort of Jewish hats they have. Yeah,
that's right.
I've wondered if some Jewish men, maybe that's how it came about. They were trying to cover up a bald spot or something. It's kind of a joke, but
Yeah, according to what I've learned in Hebrew school, that wasn't the case. But you never know.
Adrian, he's the Australian guy, isn't he? He's had upwards of 8,000 grafts now.
I don't know.
Give or take, yeah. Yeah,
he looks really good considering where he started.
Oh, he looks fantastic. Yeah, I mean that's one of the best repair jobs after where he came from that exists. I mean, all cylinders. That guy, he lucked out too.
Yeah.
Of course, he had a very dense beard to work with.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about hair transplant surgery anyways. Like some of it comes down to your own physiology, your own hair characteristics and skin characteristics and contrast between hair color and skin color. Mm-hmm. Something else these young idiots don't know anything about and don't want to hear about online. That just because you saw some guy have a decent hair transplant from a certain clinic, it doesn't mean that you're going to even look remotely as natural or as good as this other guy. Everybody's different.
One thing that I was going to ask, though, was how much would you say that it's bred by vanity, or is it vain to care about your hair?
Now, I think people use the term vanity incorrectly. Vain, if you look up the word in the dictionary, essentially means that someone is overly prideful about or think very highly of either their accomplishments or the way that they look.
Narcissistic.
Being concerned about losing your hair or trying to look and feel comfortable in your own skin, that's not vanity at all. A vain person, if I were to give you an example, would look at himself in the mirror and say, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm like a god. Look at me. I'm an Adonis. That's what vanity is.
Possibly. But then, on the other hand, there's...
Joe, what's with the faces? I don't even know what that means. Tell me what you're thinking.
I'm not going to interrupt. Continue.
What were you going to say?
Yeah.
Do you disagree with that?
I wasn't going to say anything.
Do you disagree with that assessment?
Oh, no. I was just realizing what it meant. It's like, ooh.
Oh. I'm just trying to figure it out, man. We're trying to do a show here. I'm looking at your face, and it's like you're making these faces. I'm like, if this guy's got something to say, this is a talk show. Let's talk.
It had nothing to do with you.
It's not even about...
No opinions at all.
God almighty. Caller, help me. Anyway.
He's easily distracted.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's what vanity is. And people use the term incorrectly. And really has only been, I'd say, the last 15 years that I've heard it used this way.
I think that, does vanity not have some sort of root in maybe the Catholic concept of pride, which is not necessarily just thinking too highly of yourself, but maybe thinking about yourself too much, or being too, predicating your self-confidence too much on particular things. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would say that the word vanity, at least from everything that I've known over the years, is used incorrectly currently. We can probably find different, maybe an evolved terminology, probably somewhere like on a site like Wikipedia where anybody could say anything.
Do you find that perfectionism, like how much of hair greed is a sort of perfectionism? And where do you draw the line between something that's a healthy striving towards an ideal versus something that's more of a neurotic fixation?
Well, I think that hair greed has been around since I've been in the field, obviously, but I think that it's really developed to a point now based on the unrealistic expectations put out by the industry. So if everyone really knew what a hair transplant could accomplish, they might not be as mentally screwed up about perfectionism as they are right now, because it's presented in a way that is unrealistic. Very few people have the results that are seen. Well, let me put it this way. There are people who will have the results that are seen online, but those are not good results. And then a lot of the results that are put online are put online by influencers. Like there's this one bodybuilder who I recently saw a lot of stuff, and Joe spoke about him last week, who makes his posts with fibers in his hair. And that's fine if he wants to wear fibers. But if you're going to present your hair transplant to the world and let the world know that you had a hair transplant and how happy you are with your decision, I think there's a certain responsibility to at least show what it really looks like without hair fibers and without makeup and without. So, yeah, man, you have all good questions. I think young guys today are more effed up than ever before when it comes to unrealistic expectations, what could be accomplished through this surgery. And also, there is a level of perfectionism that may not have existed when I was young based on social media.
Can I ask Joel what Joel thinks about that as well?
No, you cannot. Go ahead, Joe.
What I think about hair greed and what it means?
Yeah, just like where do you draw the line, and how do you conceive of it as a sort of psychological
Dude, you're talking to someone. You're talking to someone's had 10 hair transplants. So the cutoff line for me was when the cutoff for me was when I couldn't move any more hair. Like that's basically what it's come down to. I mean, realistically, I could have, depending on which doctor you're talking to, I probably got 2,000 more grafts in the bank. And I know I could actually do some more strip if I wanted to. But there comes a time, if you've been dealing with this for as long as I have, where you do have to start weighing the possibilities of there being a failure. Like the law of averages always wins out in the end. There will be a fuck up by someone. Like I could go back to Dr. Wong for yet another procedure, and it could get screwed up. And I mean that's just a reality. The law of averages comes into play where every time you go back in to have something done, the possibility of there being a screw up, and I'm not saying by the doctor, but it could be anything. Yes, by the doctor, or yes, by you, or your physiology, or just something wasn't done right by the technician. That chance goes up, and eventually it'll come and bite you in the ass. And it technically kind of did on my third surgery with him, where the donor scar in the occipital region stretched out. It wasn't terrible, but some people would lose their shit over it. I didn't. It didn't bother me really. but it got fixed later on easily. And so, that could be construed as, the law of averages finally catching up with me after number 5. That was my 5th surgery overall. And yeah, so in my case, yeah, that's how that worked out. But in general, hair greed comes from something that's very simple. At least with me, it was, this can work. This can look good, and I've got more to do because I had the crown to do, and then I had the temple points to do. And it's like, well, maybe we can thicken things up a little bit and, maybe lower the hairline a little bit. And that's all true. But there's also with my situation, the operating room was 15 feet away every day. So it was a lot easier for me than most people. But in general, I think that when someone goes in to have a hair transplant, one of the biggest things that's on their mind is, what if this doesn't work? And when it does work out, it's kind of like, oh, great, this does work, so I can feel better about going in for more. And they don't think ahead about the law of averages. They don't comprehend that very fact that the more times they go in, the higher the probability that something's going to happen that they don't want. And so it is something that exists. It is, I think it's based on just seeing the positives of it without realizing the negatives if they keep going. And that's where the real hair greed is not considering the consequences of continuing to go under the knife, as it were. Does that make sense?
I suppose it's a bit like Icarus in the Greek myths. He flies a bit too close to the sun and then he comes tumbling down. But then
that's almost every online influencer who goes to Turkey to have a hair transplant at this point.
Yeah. But different doctors seem to draw the line at different places. You go to one guy, he says, you have 1,000 grafts left. You go to another guy, he says, oh, you have 3,000 grafts.
I just saw a post by this ridiculous dude saying that, now, it used to be thought that we had 6,000 to 8,000 grafts in the donor bank. And now doctors are finding out that we have between 11 and 12,000.
They're suddenly discovering this. Wow.
Yeah. So the reality is, if you actually do a hybrid procedure and you're able to have enough skin elasticity where the integrity of your scalp isn't so demolished that you can get really big strips. I mean, there have been 10,000 graft cases over time of pretty DHT resistant, in quotes, nothing's completely DHT resistant, hair with strip procedures. Doctors would say average between 6,000 and 10,000 because in general, everyone was doing strips when these real averages of the safe zone were essentially assessed on the average patient. Sure, you can get 11,000 or 12,000 grafts out now if you're going to do FUE and you're going to go from the nape to the top of the head and all the way down out to your temporal points. Of course you can. It doesn't mean that they're going to continue to grow for life. It doesn't mean they're going to continue to grow for more than a couple of years. And the fact that this guy wrote this, and this guy's in the industry, I was just like, that just says it all, brother. Just says it all.
But see, if you have someone with a well-defined border to their donor area, is it a good idea with FUE to harvest all the way to the edge of that?
Is it a good idea? I mean, that's what people do. But look, I'm seeing so much nape hair being used, especially for women, in these Turkish and Indian clinics, even here in the U.S. I'm seeing guys they're having 12,000 graft cases done in one shot, 2-day procedure. And some of the guys that can do this are really good mechanics. And the donor does look depleted a little bit. I mean, it looks thinner, but it's homogenized, so it looks good all around. The guy's happy with the head of hair that grows in, and it looks miraculous. It's just not going to. It's not going to look that way unless all the stars are aligned. The person does incredibly well on medication for a long period of time. if they have a decade of hair on their head, they will be incredibly lucky. That will be kind of like the outlier of these large sessions. In general, that's not going to happen. And these guys, when the shit hits the fan, these doctors are just going to kind of change the narrative. People are going to forget. There's going to be, 200,000 of us wake up every day realizing we're losing our hair for the first time. All those old, posts are going to disappear essentially. They're going to be like, pushed down the internet. And it's going to be a whole new group of suckers who they're going to be able to make money from. That's the nature of this game.
So do you think that people are more likely to post when they have a positive or a negative result? Because I can see it going either way.
Now, there's a lot of good questions, and then we're going to take another call. I would say that now you're seeing more people who believe they've had positive results post than ever before because of social media. These people are compensated usually to some degree. They either by giving, asked to, for giving a free surgery, reached out to. I know someone recently who's offered a pretty significant retainer just to promote a group. So you're seeing much more positive than ever before. Back in the day, you saw more negative people who were spending more time online posting. And then there was kind of a time like Joe essentially created the whole, documenting his positive experience from being, a complete disfigurement of a person to...
My hair was bad too.
to turning into the handsome bloke that he is today. And he's really the first to make that happen.
Interesting.
All right, brother?
I see the positive motivation, of course, is if you're excited and it's gone well, you want to show it off. But then sometimes people will say, actually, the people who get a good result tend to just forget about it and move on with their life, but it's the people who get a bad result who want to post about it.
The vast majority of people who end up having great results, who haven't signed early on a dotted line, giving people permission to post their cases. Like, I'll give you an example. I just had just a normal, exam for something recently. And on this person's consent form, it was like, do you give us permission to use your images, whatever it is, for case study, to be posted online, to be posted here, to be posted there? I'm just like, no. You're going to post the mark on my ass for the world to see? I'm not going to let that happen.
That's good.
But that's the way this works. And in cosmetic surgery, it's everywhere. So a lot of these guys who go in, doctors want they want to be able to post patients' cases. So for some people, they're going to be heavily compensated if they have a decent following. So to answer your question, you're 100% right. In general, if this was the natural course of things, most people who've had good hair transplant results are not going to post them online. Not going to post them on the message forums. They're not going to share these cases. That's just the way that it is. It's usually negative.
And what about the ones who get bad results? Because I can see some of them would be too disheartened or like miserable to post.
Well, that's the whole point that I'm trying to make, and that I'm answering your question. It's like the people who get the bad results are the ones that are banging the drum the loudest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or some of them I'm sure go that route, but others of them probably don't want to post about it because they're shy or something, or just they're miserable and they want to move on.
No, that's true too. Go ahead, Joe.
There's some that are simply embarrassed because they don't want to be exposed for making such a bad decision in their mind. That's what they think about it. They're like, God, I really screwed up. I'm stupid, and I don't want anyone to notice. So there's no way in hell I'm going to be talking about it. But those are more rare than I think people understand because there are more people online talking about their bad outcome and, like Spencer said, beating the drum the loudest, simply due to statistics in customer service. Like, I forgot what the exact number is, but 1 in 10 people that are happy with their experience of something will tell someone else or talk about it online. And then I think it was 3 or 4 out of 10 will do the same thing if it's negative. I forgot the exact number, but it's quantifiably greater numbers of people will talk about their negative experience as opposed to those that will talk about their positive experience. That's where we get the phrase, about keyboard cowboys talking about their negative experience, and being very bold and brazen about it. But you don't see that so much with people that are happy with their experience. So it's a phenomenon that every clinic has to deal with because it's going to happen. In fact, they're more likely to get a negative comment online. And when I say online, it could be a Google review. It doesn't have to be like a forum post or Facebook. But they're going to hit one of those pretty soon, whether they like it or not.
And there's always like some guy who starts a subreddit or whatever who got screwed and now has becomes experts. And this has been happening. I say subreddit. I mean, it happened on the forums. I mean, this is something that's happened since alt.baldspot. And all of a sudden they become...
You get several people. You get a bunch of people on forums who they get a bad result and then they become like big warriors and they like learn everything and they start posting. And then often they get a really good result to follow it up, and that it turns into something quite positive. But that's interesting as well. But
I can tell you this: doing this for 30 years, every one of these guys ends up unwell in some way. They go for their last surgery and they're screwed, or they pump their chest for a long time. They just get so they tire out. They just become unwell people, unsuccessful in their lives. There was a guy who was a kind of a well-known guy on the message forums. I'm not going to be too specific, but he ended up just really screwing up his life. And he was one of the nastiest, most evil people that I think anyone could have ever experienced in their lifetime.
And he screwed up his life because of the way he handled the hair transplants.
Just the way that he handled everything in his life, the way that he spoke to people, the way that he dictated, once he started to feel power hungry, just the way that he treated people, patients, people in the industry. It was horrible. Yeah. You see this all the time. It never ends well for these guys. It never ends well. I mean, I don't know if you believe in karma. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but with these guys, karma's a bitch. It never ends well for these guys.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Listen, you're a great caller. You have some really insightful and interesting questions, but we're going to take some more calls.
Yeah, sure. Can I ask just one more thing, though, on the topic of bad doctors and such?
Go ahead.
Which is relevant, because I just want to know, how do different doctors respond to the negative outcomes?
Joe's good at this. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, boy. How much time we got? Okay, so this is how different doctors will respond to reports of negative outcomes online. That's what you're talking about, right? Or are you talking about just patients coming into their office with a bad outcome? Which is it? Online?
Both.
Both.
I meant the first
okay.
one. Yeah, I meant the first one. But since you said both,
okay.
That's an interesting topic.
Well, we only have so much time for the show, so I'll just talk about what happens online. So what happens
and
is
life, for crying out loud.
when a clinic learns of a patient that's unhappy online, they immediately go into panic mode, and they start doing their own internal investigations. Who is this? Who is this? Who's saying this? And and their initial concern is it's fake. But once they find out who it is and learn that it's not fake, then what they'll do, some clinics will say, well, let's get them on the phone. Let's talk to them. Let's get some clear photos. That's one of the problems is you'll have patients posting photos online talking about the disaster, and you can't even see what the hell is going on. like they're holding their hair back and you know, it's like really tight and you can't see what's going on, or they look like they just got out of bed and they're saying, look how thin my hair is. It's like, you know, stupid. I'm sorry, but stupid photos.
They have really harsh lighting as well.
Yeah. Just all kinds of scenarios that just really don't help their case. Everyone else is looking at it like, oh, it looks terrible. Well, shit, my hair looks terrible in those conditions. You know, it's like you gotta show what it looks like if you're styling it, which is the whole point of getting a hair transplant. And you know, with that aside, the doctor or the clinic itself will look at it, and if they're a good clinic, they will objectively look at it to see if they agree, if it's a clear, you know, assuming clear photos, clear presentation, you know, nothing that's obvious trying to distort the outcome, and if it is objectively less than what it should be, and the time for it to mature has passed, and we know that the patient's on meds and you know all this good stuff, then it's like, you know what, shit happens. We can you know top it up. We can address it. Let's do that. We're happy to do it. We want to make sure you're happy. That's what good clinics will do. But even good clinics will sometimes go on the defensive if they feel like they're in the right. They will push back against patients that are refusing to send the better photos or refusing to, you know, discuss their medical history after the surgery. Like there are a lot of scenarios, but when you break it down, you've got the ones that'll stand behind the work, no questions asked, and say, look, we just want to make sure you're happy. You do also have the clinics that will say, you know what, we agree, but, you know, and we're happy to do another procedure, but you need to understand something. We discussed with you that this may happen. There's no guarantees with surgery. So you're not getting a refund, and we're not doing this at no charge, but as a show of good faith, we can give you a discount of some sort just to make it a bit easier. And I actually agree with that approach. I don't believe in guarantees of outcome. I only believe in guarantees of doing the best work that they can.
100%.
And when patients go, and this actually goes back into my very first hair transplant class on my YouTube channel, where I'm talking about don't have a hair transplant. And I used to get so much shit over that. But the message is don't have a hair transplant unless you're prepared for there to be a possible negative outcome, because it can happen with the best clinics. Doesn't matter doesn't matter what flavor of the month the clinic is, being the best in the world, it can and has happened to them. And so if you understand this as a patient, then you're actually going to wind up being happier in the long run, or less miserable when you are open to that idea that this is not this should not be a guaranteed outcome, because it's impossible to guarantee it. What does a guarantee even mean? You know?
Yeah.
So that's my take on it. And clinics I work with, some have adopted that position because they're like, yeah, you're right. And then there are the clinics that will fight tooth and nail and send threatening letters or emails saying, you know, you're trying to defame our reputation and all that stuff. So you got the three different types of responses and variations on each of those. You got the ones that will take responsibility and go above and beyond with, you know, laying out the red carpet for you. You got those that will say, yeah, you're right, but, you know, we warned you this could happen, but, you know, let's work together to see if we can come up with a solution to make you happy. And then you got the third one where, like, get stuffed. We did nothing wrong. Seriously, I've seen that more times I can count.
It used to be funny. There was a doctor on the message forums back in the day who would just go all nuts, man, just totally, you know. I mean, this guy would go ballistic online, threatening people, and then he would. I think he would send cease and desist letters to people, and I'm thinking, God, these kids are so fucking dumb. I would wipe the floor with somebody like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I remember a couple times speaking to this doctor on the phone, and he once tried to go off on me about something. And I told him, essentially, brother, you're barking up the wrong tree. You are talking to the wrong person about this. You might want to bring it down a notch because I'm not one of your frightened patients. You know?
Yeah.
It's an interesting industry, brother, you know, and I tell people this all the time. Do your best to do your due diligence. Understand that surgery is a last resort. A great hair transplant surgery for the right candidate can be life-changing. You're dealing with countless personalities in a clinic. You're dealing with several technicians. You're dealing with doctors who have to then deal with their office managers or their, you know, whatever their consultants. And there's a whole bunch of bullshit that they're dealing with on a regular basis. You're not just dealing with a guy doing a hair transplant for you. That's not the way that it works. So you have to put all of this into the equation when you walk through those doors and understand that anything can happen. You want to mitigate any possible damage and mitigate any possible aggravation by doing your due diligence as best as you can. That's it. And if you can avoid surgery, that's your best bet. The end.
Yeah, cool. Well, happy Easter, guys.
All right, brother. Happy Easter. Thanks for the
happy
call.
Easter. Thanks for calling.
Take care. But you're a shill, Kobren. Yeah, we got more calls. Let's take a call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, guys. This is Alex from D.C. calling.
Hey, Alex from D.C. How are you?
Alex, what's up, man?
Good. What's up, guys? You know, something from that last caller when you guys talked about the, you know, social media and expectations, something I wanted to talk about. Are you guys familiar with this term physique inflation?
Physique inflation?
It's this idea that, like, you know, what was considered a jacked and muscular physique back like 20 years ago is now considered a dad bod. And, you know, because the standards are getting higher and higher. And I've noticed the exact same thing with hair, that now, like in Hollywood, the expectation is a Norwood 1. But on social media, I'm not exaggerating when I say the expectation is a 2-finger forehead like Norwood 0. And anything above that, people will call you bald. And I think that's been a big contributor to, you know, people going to hair mills and getting botched.
So wait a second. So what you're saying is I'm not bald? Because these guys have been trying to destroy my self-esteem since I started to do Instagram.
That's good.
Well, you know what? You know what, though? Like, most people outside of this niche sort of, you know, hair loss world, I think most people on the street would just see you or Joe and think, okay, that's a guy with a normal head of hair. I feel like every few weeks there's comments and there's a debate in the comment section about Joe's hairline. I'm not crazy, right? I feel like this happens pretty regularly. They're like, oh, is Joe a 4? Is Joe a 2? But I mean, I feel like most people don't really notice that.
Yeah,
but I mean,
no, you're right. And again, I'm just like, after a while, it's just like, I don't even know what I'm dealing with here. These kids, I'm like, I've been balding for 40 years. What do these 22-year-olds expect a grown man to look like who saved his hair? You know, so they do have this, and that's interesting. I never heard of physique inflation. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. I am noticing that, like a normally muscular guy, like say, well, like what I used to be when I was 25 years old, would be considered like skinny or not a dad bod necessarily, but just like not jacked. But when I was a kid, people would say like, you're like got a really athletic build. You know, now these kids feel they're so self-conscious about looking strong and normal. Everyone's on juice, or what do they call it now? Gear.
Yep. Well, you know, a good example, the example people use to describe this is like, if you look at Hugh Jackman when he first played Wolverine in like the late 90s versus now, I mean, it looks like now he's in his mid-50s. The dude's, you know, roided up, got that super dehydrated look. He looks great, but that's what you have to do. And like the same, going back to hair, you know, you just don't see normal hairlines on TV anymore or on social media. If you find any male actor under the age of maybe 25 or 30, if there's even a 2, go to the Instagram comment section. You'll have a bunch of 19-year-olds just spamming the Turkish flag, like calling them bald. It's kind of insane.
That's unbelievable. I'm trying to pay less attention to that, but it's very interesting, man.
Good.
I've seen some of that, but I don't pay attention to the comments too much anywhere, and so I've not noticed it a lot, but I have seen throughout the years, spread out. I've seen a few people here and there talk about, any sort of weakness in your hairline means that you're bald and 80 years old, or at least almost 60.
Oh, they're like, dude, your hairline's cooked. What do you know about hair loss?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to happen to them in 5 years, probably. So, I mean,
this is what I think is
has.
hilarious. When these guys go on the street and they ask women, young women like 22, if you date a bald guy, some say yeah, but most would be like, no way. I'm thinking, all of you are going to be with bald guys at some point. You better get used to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to finish this off, like I posted about this on Reddit one time, and they got so defensive and told me I was coping. But I posted pictures of Luke Perry, R.I.P., Kiefer Sutherland, and Jude Law. And these were all considered like some of the best-looking guys of the 90s. All of them had, some visible amount of either a high hairline or a little bit of recession. They were still great looking, but I was just thinking, back then, nobody was talking about. I mean, find like a teen magazine from like 1992 with Jude Law on the cover. It was just a bunch of girls fawning over him, and no one was calling, "Oh, he's a Norwood 3. Can he pull off this widow speak?" But I'm just thinking now, if he was just 22 years old, like he would have to wear a hair system, and everybody would be commenting on his hairline. But it's just gotten ridiculous.
Well, it is sad. I will say though that that's why the industry is booming, the bad side of the industry, as Sam Lamb would call it, the black market of the industry, and the entire industry has become a black market. It's very difficult to talk a young guy into the reality of what a hair transplant should look like and what they could really achieve with a well-executed hair transplant. And, people like Joe and I get shit for having normal man hairlines. That's just the way that it is. I mean, mine's a little high, but what are you going to do? But look at Luke Perry had like a 7 head and and he was supposed to be in high school. And he looked great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Again, like nobody would have said anything about it back then. Now I can't. I don't want to. R.I.P. again. But like, I just imagine.
To be fair, back when those shows were popular, there was no place to talk about it anyway. Like all bald spot didn't even exist, much less hair loss forums. So back then it was a little bit more difficult. To comment about it unless you wanted to write a letter to the editor of, whatever magazine that talked about, some celebrity.
And the fact that you have a teen beat from the 1990s is
I didn't want to say it.
A little questionable.
Alex is hanging on to the past, baby.
No, I was born in 97. So I was just, I was talking about the teen beats, and I mean, I just going off of, what I know of who was famous during that era. But well, I didn't want to take it too much time, but more of just a rant about how I think that standard's ridiculous, and pretty soon you're just not going to, everybody's going to be wearing wigs because the expectation will be you have a 1-finger forehead if you're bald. So I guess we have that to look forward to.
Actually, here's what I think is going to happen. The pendulum will swing back, just like it did with fillers. Now there's this whole mantra. It's hilarious. They're like, well, the new trend is less fillers and a more natural appearance. That's not the trend. That's because after 20 some odd years, it finally came out that these fillers are destroying the faces and the looks permanently of these poor women who are getting it done. It's there's no such thing. It's not about being overfilled like we used to say. Essentially, these substances stay in your body for life. They create ongoing inflammation, and they also begin to absorb water. So that's why these women get filler fatigue or filler face, and you see it happening to guys, and they're just destroying these people's appearances. As these hair transplants begin to fail, and they are already it's already happening. You see these guys with these very low hairlines, like that bodybuilder, Chris Bumsfeld or whatever his name is. I don't think that's going to become the new normal. This new normal is going to be short-lived. Maybe another decade.
I hope so. Yeah.
And look, I could either be dead or a super old man by then. I'm not going to give a shit. But I'm telling you, man, when I see these kids coming back from wherever they're getting these hair transplants, or these doctors who feel forced to provide them here in the U.S. with these really unnatural hairlines, I mean, I don't think these kids are going to know what hit them once the hairlines or once the hip transplant starts to diminish. I mean, you're talking about these people's, their lives are going to be devastated. But anyway, this is a great topic. It's very important. And even these kids with their physiques today, I couldn't even understand that. I don't think women give a shit about that. I really don't. I really think it's kind of like a guy thing. And the women are just like, they kind of go along with it, as far as a guy's physique. But
it's a topic of conversation. That's about it.
I just see these guys who are just, I mean, they're just, there's one guy you were talking about, Joe, that got the hair transplant. He's also a bodybuilder, and he regrets getting on gear when he looked really great before gear. And then he did the gear, and then he's like all acne ridden and just like, I mean, he got big. But anyway, brother, it's a good topic of conversation. You're absolutely right about it.
Yep. Great to talk to you guys. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks, Alex. Bye.
We'll take one more call.
Okay.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Pretty good. How are you?
Hey.
I'm great. This is haven't talked to you guys in a while. This is Omar from Florida.
Omar.
Hey,
how are
Omar.
You, brother?
Wow, man.
Hey, guys. I'll refresh your memory. The guy who a certain doctor in Georgia offered a gun to.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
You're the guy who basically said, wait, what was it? Was it because of someone else's work, or is it if it was because of his work?
I'm a repair patient. Yeah, I'm a repair patient, and I was visiting doctors per your guys' suggestions. And when I went into that one doctor and I asked him, I've been through a lot with this. What happens if you operate on me and it doesn't come out to my liking, if it doesn't come out right? And he just said, I'll give you the gun myself.
Sweet.
Yeah, which Jesus. At the time, I laughed it off in the moment, but then I was like, that's kind of messed up afterwards. And lo and behold, that whole episode happened. And we don't have to spend too much time on it.
Wait, what episode is that?
Wait, what?
A pretty slurry episode.
Yeah.
Slurry. That's good.
What do they say? What was not the late great, but Jeff Spigoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High? It was people on drugs should not drive. I think that was the line.
Yeah.
Or operate.
Or operate.
Or operate, yeah.
So anyway, I'm calling you guys because today I am 1 year post-op with Dr. Wong.
Oh, mazel tov.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Thank you. And
I hope he doesn't need to offer you a gun.
Drum roll.
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
Dude, I'm so happy that you're happy.
I'm just so happy. I mean, it worked out.
Awesome.
What can I say?
And it
Dr.
does.
Wong, yeah. And it can, yeah. It can work out. And so to the point of a couple of the previous callers, man, I just want to add, be patient. Be patient. Look for your doctor thoroughly. And know what you're getting into when you choose your doctor. And the reason I say that is because I went to some doctors who were great, and they were very technical, telling you, the estimation of grafts and this and that and the diameter, the square centimeters that they would do and all this stuff. But I wanted Dr. Wong after I met him, because even though he wasn't speaking so technically, he had the body of work that I thought represented the best case scenario for a patient like myself, repair patient with a lot of ground to cover. I was a Norwood 6 with 2 messed up scars, one on each side of my head. And B, just the vibe. You know what I mean? You also kind of have to go with your gut on this thing. And guys, it worked out. I went from a Norwood 6 to, I'm getting choked up even talking about it. I went from a Norwood 6 repair patient to a Norwood who is how I like to call it.
Wow.
Yeah, Norwood. You can use that. Feel free.
I'm so thrilled for you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you guys have a huge part in this. I spent over, I got messed up when I was 20. I had a doctor operate on me, leave 2 huge scars. Of course, I then lost the rest of my hair, and I just lived perpetually with a hat and with a comb over for over 10 years. Well over 10 years, like 15 years.
Wow.
I got operated at, more than that. My first surgery, I was 22, and Dr. Wong operated on me at 38. So
wow.
16 years.
Did you go, was it like a large chain clinic that you went to at the time?
No, it was a very unknown clinic where I'm from in the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
Not Alba Reyes, who I know you know. It was
right.
an unknown one.
Right.
So Dr. Wong was very upfront. The clinic was top-notch. The service was top-notch. He never promised me anything except his best effort, just like Joe just said a few minutes ago. And the vibes were there. He didn't try to sell me on it. He was very conservative in how he talked to me about it, but I kept going back to his body of work, the results I had seen, the patients that they put me in contact with, who I, established a relationship with and sent me photos of their befores and afters. And obviously looking at Joe, and I went in, I bit the bullet. I went in with hope, and it's a year after. And why is it for me a huge success? Because I'm happy with it.
Yes.
I'm completely satisfied. Is it the most dense in the world? No, of course not. I was on Norwood 6, and I got 4,400 grafts implanted. It's not the densest in the world, but it is completely natural, and I can't believe it. I wake up, and I just can't believe it. Joe, I sent you some photos in your DMs today. Later on, if you want to check it out, no stress. I'm just so happy. It's a year after, and I'm stoked, and I just wanted people to know that it can work. Just take your time.
I'm so thrilled. I'm so thrilled. Now, let me ask you this, and I don't mean to belabor this, but at the time when you went to the doctor in Atlanta and he made that comment, he kind of laughed it off. What made you not go with this guy? And I'm just curious, was it just that incident? Was it listening to the program and hearing him actually, communicate with us?
A couple of things. Great question. And it was a couple of things. Number one was the vibes I got from him and his son when I was there, including that joke and including some remarks his son made that I thought were just like, dude, where's your manners? While I was there in person.
Really?
And then, yeah. And then number two,
that kid is a gem, let me tell you.
Yeah. And then number two, when their rep kept following up with me, the rep was a great guy, but whatever. When I told the rep I was about to go see Dr. Wong for another consultation, the son emailed me, just kind of questioning berating me for why I was even going to go see Dr. Wong and why strip surgery wasn't right for me. And as soon as I saw that, I was just like, dude, I'm never stepping foot in that clinic again. Lo and behold, after I go see Dr. Wong, about a week after was the show where he called into you guys, and we all know what happened there. So, that's how it went down.
I got to tell you, I've been doing this for a very long time, and that experience, I've had a lot of good experiences on the air when I was on the radio. I had a lot of fun. I had like Ray Woods debating William Rassman, and my producer at the time was playing the theme to Rocky. It was pretty fun. But that phone call from that doctor in Atlanta was probably one of the funniest calls I think we've ever received. It was sad, you know. It was sad to listen to a guy like systematically dismantle his entire career.
Seriously,
you know.
Liar. Here we go, liar.
There you go.
Yeah, but I also think that it really, you know, in my view, it potentially saved a lot of people from.
I think so.
A lot of things that, again, I always said the guy had good hands. I think that he, you know, he was good at what he did for a very, very long time. I mean, I haven't seen anything in a long time coming out of his office. I don't even know if is he practicing now? I don't even know.
Well, I see a lot of emails for deals. I see a lot of deals emails.
So I know they're doing some sort of a revolutionary tattoo PRP or something.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, man, I mean, it was a very interesting, I was just curious, you know, so it was a number of things. And so basically it was really just bedside manner, his son, who's a very interesting character. Who really would be unemployable otherwise, I would say.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'm so happy you made that decision for yourself.
Thank you. I mean, and you saying that, I also want to stress how by the time I got the surgery, I feel like my transformation had already been done because I did a lot of therapy. I was messed up, man, about it, and you know, I started going to therapy. I started kind of revealing my vulnerability to people. So by the time I had the surgery was kind of icing on the cake in a way. And I just felt like, wow, I can't believe I did this for myself. And all these feelings of like, oh, am I being vain, or all of that just kind of went away. And I was just kind of happy for myself for the first time. And it's something that I think most men, you know, we struggle to talk about it. Just doing something for yourself and your happiness. And you know, I did. And as long as you take your time, and make the best choices you can, knowing that nothing is guaranteed in this, it can work out. I'm a testament to it. I'm so happy about it. And I just wanted to call and thank you guys. I have a little area in my crown that Dr. Wong didn't have enough grafts for that I'll probably fill in. But I also wanted to let you know that because of your guys' advice, like, I'm not rushing to do it.
That's great.
The hair that I used to use to cover my whole head in an elaborate comb-over job, that even fooled Dr. Wong, I might add. I walked into his office like that, and he was like, what are you here for?
Right.
Nice.
It was pretty impressive. That hair that I used to cover my whole head with is now a man bun that covers the little spot that Dr. Wong couldn't get to. Right. But I'm going to hold off. I'm going to see how much time this buys me. And unfortunately, Dr. Wong will probably be retired by the time I'm ready, but I'll address that when that time comes.
Yeah, there are other skilled, ethical guys who will still be doing strip. It's funny. I do think that pendulum is starting to swing back. And I know of more younger guys who are kind of reinventing themselves and incorporating strip into their practices and spending the money for that infrastructure. So I don't think strip is going to go by way of the dodo like everyone thought, or like that, especially like the guy in Atlanta really wanted to happen.
I could see that.
Yeah. So
I will go with strip again. Dr. Wong said like my elasticity is still great. I went to see him at about 7 months post. He was really happy with how everything was going out. He was like, yeah, you can definitely get another strip. So I will do that when the time comes, but I'm not in a rush. For now, I'm just enjoying it. It's crazy how quickly we get used to this.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's insane. Anytime I think anything even slightly negative about it, I'm just like, what a great problem to have that I don't know exactly how to comb my hair right now.
Dude,
it is.
Don't make me cry, brother. I'm so happy for you. And
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm getting emotional just talking about it. But I don't want to take up all your guys' time. I just really wanted to say thank you.
We're closing the show on this call, so don't worry about it. I mean, brother,
okay, cool.
I'm so happy for you. I believe you dodged an incredible bullet, given the fact that you were most likely a candidate for strip surgery that worked out, especially given the fact that you're a repair case.
Yeah. I mean, Dr. Wong, he did incredible with my previous 2 scars. He wasn't able to knock them both out completely because of the angle they were in, but he got more than half of each.
That's
and
great.
He was just like, if you do end up getting a neck strip and it's with me, I could completely remove those for you. But again, I'll cross that bridge later.
Yeah.
But for what it is now, I mean, he did incredible. And
what bugs me is that this kid would contact you and then say, based on what knowledge that he has, that you are not a candidate for strip surgery when you already had 2 strip scars. You're in need of significant repair. Anyone who knows anything about hair transplant surgery understands how limited that donor area is and how important it is to utilize the most viable grafts, especially during a repair case.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I definitely dodged a bullet.
That's tantamount to malpractice, and the fact that he's representing a physician, I'm disgusted.
Yeah, you should be. And FYI, for anybody wondering, like, Dr. Wong's scar is literally almost like, I mean, it's pretty much non-existent. Like, I'm getting a short fade on the side. That scar is nowhere to be found. My girlfriend is like, what scar?
That's amazing.
Like, I actively have her trying to look for it. It's incredible. You get what you pay for, and a lot of what you pay for with somebody like Dr. Wong and other great doctors is their decision-making. And that's like a big realization, at post-surgery. You're like, oh, now I understand why you did what you did, why you distributed it the way you did. It's just like you guys say, it's an illusion.
Yes.
But, man, what a great illusion.
Omar, man, I'm so thrilled for you. Please call back. Let us know how things continue, for you in your life. And I hope that your hair transplant just continues to grow for many years to come. I'm sure that it will. And I'm just so glad that you're able to live your life more comfortably now.
Thank you, man. I'm about to walk outside without a hat, and it's the best feeling ever. I appreciate you guys.
Brother, I love it, man. You take care. Buddy. Take care.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Thanks, Omar.
Bye-bye.
Now, that's a call to end the show on.
I'll drink to that. That was a great one. I remember I think I had some interaction with him offline or off air, and he sent me the emails, and it was something else. He actually downplayed it. It was worse than he let on about the berating of the decision making.
Look, I don't even like talking about these people. I mean, to me, they are subhuman at this point.
Yeah.
But, look, what are you going to do? It is what it is, and, I'm really glad. And look, I've spoken to Omar. I remember his call. He knows that, I'm still trying to figure out why Dr. Wong is still so obsessed with the money I make. But whatever. He's still great at what he's still great at what he does, and I will never take that away from him. He's one of the few guys who could turn somebody who was screwed up like you into what you look like today. And obviously he did something very similar in maybe a shorter amount of time with Omar. And I am thrilled. And it's too bad that he's eventually going to have to retire because, time and tide stop for no man. Except for me, apparently.
You're almost 60.
I know. People still think I have a picture of myself in that attic somewhere. And I signed a deal with the devil, I guess.
Woohoo.
People don't know what that means. Anyway.
No, they really don't.
You got to read, people. Can't stay on the internet your entire life. All right, guys, listen, until next time, be strong. God bless. Thank you so much for listening. Oh, by the way, check out Joe on Instagram at Joe Tillman Official.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Also, follow me on Instagram, would you? At Spencer Kobren. Until next time.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Hair Transplant channel and this broadcast.
That too. Jesus. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you.